Soul rights. Hey, it's a little early, but I wanted to talk to you about this idea of throwing our bodies into holiness. The spiritual disciplines require bodily engagement, and that's really just a fact of life with being a human. There's no such thing as a bodily act that does not involve our spirits. There's no such thing as a spiritual decision that does not require our bodies. We're always these hybrid creatures. We're spiritual amphibians. And so when we engage in the spiritual disciplines, we have to throw our bodies into them. Even something like memorizing scripture. Most people think of that as a purely mental act. But Willard, I love the way he says, even scripture memory is a bodily discipline because it begins with taking a chair, putting glue in the seat, and then attaching yourself to it. And then you sit there and you hammer it out. You'll hear a lot of folk complain about the way a church service is organized. Famously, people say, stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. Well, it's not a movie theater, and neither is it a football stadium. It's a sanctuary. And the standing and the sitting is part of the liturgy, part of throwing our bodies into that holiness. It's a physical discipline. And so our spirits are tethered to the things our bodies do, the directions that we put our bodies. So that's what we're talking about. When we talk about establishing a culture of the spiritual disciplines, we're talking about people that are identified by what they do with their bodies. Our sexual ethic is certainly that kind of spiritual discipline, where we put our bodies, where we don't put our bodies. And so this is what we want to do. This is one of the most primary works of the soul rights culture, is being a people of the spiritual disciplines, being people that are identified by how we behave with our bodies, how that influences our spirit. And then eventually we get to a place where it's indiscernible. The disciplines have seeped all the way through into us. The habits of righteousness just naturally flow out of who we are. And that's why Jesus said, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And of course, that's impossible to obey at first. If you try not to, you are going to end up doing that. But he gives us this thing that even when we don't understand it, we can remember it. He gives us this statement like a masterful teacher would. The musician, the athlete, the artist, the craftsman, all of these people practice for so long until it's not practice anymore. It's just who they are. It's just what they do. The music just flows out of their hands on the keyboard. They don't let their left hand know what their right hand is doing. That's the kind of people we want to be. That's what it means to be a soul right.